to the soap opera of the stars, from the 17th of June to the 23rd of June. As always, I'd like to begin with sharing I'm not an astrologer, I'm not a human design expert. I use astrology and human design both for myself as well as with my clients in my intuitive energy practice. And I've worked for about 14 years with that intuitive ability and 1,000 people. And in the last couple of years, where I have been using astrology and human design, I've definitely found that it helps to inform in terms of how we need to look at ourselves and what we need to understand about the general themes that are influencing our lives right now. The whole point of sharing these as stories is to make them a little lighter, to make them a little more fun, and to really look at what are the themes that they are bringing up. The reason why I share them at the end of the week instead of at the beginning is because I feel rather than use it as a predictive tool, it is better to use it as a tool for self-growth, personal development, and to really look back at how these themes have impacted us, what are the questions that need answering, and how we need to move forward in life or go deeper in terms of our self-work. I do share on Instagram a general theme for the week, short videos, which is at the beginning of the week. So you're welcome to look at that and then to use these more from the perspective of how has this impacted me and what can I do with it going forward. So let's begin with the stories. The house of Gemini was busy with activity. All the windows had been thrown open to allow even more light in, and the dark mahogany that was the walls was looking rich and opulent, but not too bright. What this did do, though, was highlight everything on the walls. The artwork, the sculptures, the shelves, the books, quotes from some of the best thinkers that were beautifully framed. It was so exquisite, thought the moon as she walked around, filling her senses with it all. Her eyes were caught by a corner which had a coffee table book on all the most popular love stories, and she chuckled to herself. Trust Mercury to find a rating scale even for love, she thought, as she flipped through the pages and images. Moon sighed as she read the stories. It should be retitled The Most Popular Longing Stories, she grimaced as she put it back on the table. Why, that face, said Sun, who had just walked in looking for her, and Moon's face lit up as if not one but 1,000,000 stars were in front of her. Moon was feeling so much love for Sun that all she wanted was to look at him. She had gone dark to the earth, so focused was her attention on the sun. As per tradition, they were going to birth an idea that the moon would talk about as she made her round of the houses in the zodiac, and she could not wait to get started. The fact that they were in Gemini, with Mercury lurking about, meant that it would be blessed with the capacity to be absorbed and heard by all whom she conveyed it to. And that was even more fun. I love it when your attention is all on me, says Sun, teasing as Moon returns from her thoughts and sticks her tongue out at him. And that's what we're going to be talking about, says Sun mischievously, chucking her chin, making Moon blush. I'm feeling curious now, she says, wanting for Sun to be distracted from teasing her while she regained her composure. Sun not missing a thing, but knowing they needed to get moving before they got distracted by a constantly buzzing Gemini, said, I'm referring to what the tongue produces, and pauses while Moon blushes a little deeper. And then he says, well, I'm talking about words, and watches as Moon giggles at that play. They look at each other for a moment and then get serious, knowing it's not worth dallying, as their time together is short-lived before the moon must move on again. I've been thinking about how carelessly we use words, says Sun. How we don't think about the impact they have on the other person. How easy it is to use words as a defense mechanism rather than look within and take ownership of our own feelings. Or, says Moon, we say nothing when we have so much value to add. We hold back because we are afraid that we may not be accepted or worse, ridiculed. It is quite the trap. Words once spoken cannot be taken back, and some are careless with them, others much too careful. And media blowing up isn't helping, says Sun. It's so easy to say things to the inanimate camera that won't talk back and post it, and then just not listen to anyone with a different opinion. Yes, but on the other hand, so many people who would never be noticed otherwise are being able to showcase their skills. I see, the sun laughs, that we are at two ends on this subject right now. Well, yes, the moon says, but we're also saying the same things, which is, asked the sun, curious himself now to understand how Moon was looking at this. She continues, well, we both agree that words are powerful. They can wound or they can bring peace. They can lead you astray or help you find the path. We need to ensure there's a sense of responsibility around them. Yes, and realizing that when they are so powerful, why not speak them in a way that ensures the maximum impact? Take the time, wait for the moment, and speak in a way that lights people up. The way I'm lighting you up right now, smiles the sun, as the moon seems to glow brighter once again. But why would anyone heed this advice, asks the moon. So sun says, the one thing everyone wants is respect. The one thing that says respect is the influence you have on others. And the one way to influence is to speak words that can be absorbed by the other. And moon finishes also, live by those words. That's such an interesting way to look at this, continues the moon. Everyone wants to feel like they matter. Everyone wants to be heard and their opinion validated. And yet, we rarely apply any thought to what we say, who we say it to, and when. And even less thought to whether what we say is actually how we live our lives as well. Hello, hello, dearies, says Mercury, sweeping into the room and sweeping them both into a hug and letting go quickly as if the sun may burn them. I heard what you were talking about, and let me tell you, even ChatGPT is all about the right words for the right result. Of course, I have my own ChatGPT. The mortal stuff just won't do it for me. And even she needs the right words before she can do her magic. Well, are you ready to celebrate our time together? Mercury asks, while literally herding them out of their cozy corner and into a room full of food and drink and jazz music being played by a band. I believe in ensuring I'm doing the best I can in every moment, says Mercury, continuing without a break and handing out glasses of a delicate pink-looking, delicious-tasting, buzz-creating drink to both sun and moon. And now that I've authored the book with Uranus, I'm thinking of writing a compilation of short stories. I've been going through some of the journals left behind. Don't worry, Mercury says, addressing their looks of concern. I will take no names, but I think a story here or there would be fun for people to read. Impactful and all of that you were saying, you know. And yes, I will talk to the planets concerned for their consent. Don't get yourselves all tied up, Mercury says, finishing his monologue and moving on, leaving the sun and moon looking at each other with their mouths open at this energy and how Mercury seemed to have co-opted their discussion to suit themselves. Well, it's time for Moon to move on, but she promises to spend time with the sun when he moves into her house of Cancer later in the week. As we leave this party, we move on to the middle of the week, where Venus and Mars finally meet up in Leo and decide they're going to spend time stargazing together. They are in what Moon calls her wild garden. They are hit by the aroma of the flowers and the absolute chaotic beauty that meets their eyes. Oh my goodness, says Venus, they've let the vines grow wild. Seeing what Mars couldn't and then showing him. See how they've put a structure to get the vines to move in these directions, but then they've just let them all grow into each other, wild on this structure. It's exquisite, Venus says, twirling with her head tilted backwards so she could take in the beauty and the fragrance, making Mars look at her and think the same thing about how she was looking. Venus smiled as their eyes met, and she stretched her hand out so they could find a spot to sit together. It feels nice not to be at opposing ends of the argument, thinks Mars, smiling at this Venus who shone in Leo after her time in Cancer, where she seemed to have developed this soft and comforting feel. Venus was thinking the same thing about how different Mars was, here in Leo after his time in Cancer and Gemini, where he seemed to have the ability to go deeper in conversations they were having. As they settled in to watch the cosmos in all its beauty, they spot Mercury and Chiron having the same idea about stargazing and invite them over for a chat. Mercury dives in with letting Venus and Mars know that they've decided to use some bits of their respective journals for their own short stories that they're planning to do, and is a little taken aback by how shocked they both are at that announcement, much to Chiron's amusement, who's looking on. Venus begins to explain, saying that both their creative projects are to a large extent based on those journals, and it would not make any sense at all for Mercury to be taking stuff out of them as well. Mars backs her up and lets Mercury know that he's not convinced Mercury should have access to those journals in the first place, even though they were a guide to the thinking process. And so nothing is hidden from them, but they still shouldn't be reading them. When it comes to using the stories in there, that definitely needed to be a decision that he and Venus had veto power on, given it really was content that they were going to use. Mercury looks hurt, then gets sulky and grumbles about stinginess and spoiled brats who won't share, and Venus and Mars exchange an amused look with Chiron. Mars tries to placate Mercury. Uranus told me how you've just finished writing a magnificent book with him, and gets a sniffle in response, making Mars almost burst out at the tantrum. Jupiter was telling me all about the conversations you had with him, chimes in Venus, trying to make this better, and how you did a whole lot of work back there in Taurus. That would be a good source for your stories. Especially all the stuff you did with Nona, Shona, and Pluto. Mercury seems to soften a little. Fine, they say as they roll over on their tummy. I still think you're ungrateful though, given what a mess you've left behind for me to clean in Gemini. And they all laugh, not understanding why it's funny, but deciding to humor Mercury, who could make this evening very painful, or could be a lot of fun. Have you spoken to Moon? Mercury asks. She's on a mission about the impact of words this lunar month, and I think it's quite relevant given how all of us, and they pause to make sure everyone realizes they're not so easily talked out of their plans. Yeah, all of us have creative projects where we will use words. And they look around as if making a very important point. Well, we have meetings with her tomorrow, says Venus, speaking for both her and Mars. We have been discussing something similar ourselves. We've both been thinking how it's important to communicate in ways that inspire and excite people. It's old school now to think that a person of influence can say something and everyone will follow. There are just so many more opinions being expressed, and while the world is still structured with the power in the hands of a few, there are also pockets where people are exploring being more autonomous. Mars speaks up, and given how many different points of view are beginning to be expressed, it's important that we all learn the need to balance and respect each other. It's good when we can work things out together, Also making a point to what he thought of Mercury's plans with their journals. They all exchanged knowing smiles and continued in peace as they looked out at the swirls and twirls of energy around them. We must look at one more thing that happened earlier this week to Saturn, who suddenly started feeling very suffocated. He felt he was having a panic attack with thoughts around how everyone was laughing at him, were taking pleasure at how he was way out of his comfort zone. He had thoughts about how no one was ever going to pay him attention ever again, and that he would wilt away in Pisces. Jupiter realizes that he needs to spend some time comforting Saturn now. It was high time, and lands up unannounced and is happy to see Saturn feels relieved and not threatened. It's time to slow down here and really get deep into the Piscean mystery as only you can, Saturn. Jupiter says, knowing Saturn doesn't take well to advice, but hoping he would be willing to listen in this moment. Saturn visibly relaxes, but then also says that it was just really scary being in this unknown space and that he was going too quickly trying to master it all. That's how he was feeling now. Feels more like trying to control it all, smiles Jupiter, and feels delighted to see Saturn smile back. Yeah, all right, says Saturn. I guess I will take it easy. I do realize that I need to look deeper within myself first before I try and convey the learnings around emotions I think I now have. Well, also adds Jupiter, you need to think about whether you have truly learned about emotions and depth as yet. What do you mean? Asked Saturn, a little surprised at how daring Jupiter was being questioning his knowledge. Well, the mystery of Pisces, the depth, the emotions, are not something you can experience fully until you allow the experience to really sink in. There's a cycle to everything, and my take is you've understood the concepts, but to really be the family man you seem to be aiming for, you need to watch and allow things to emerge and unfold before teaching. Better yet, you need to actually live what you want to share. Only then will you really feel confident and be able to communicate from that place. Saturn thinks about what Jupiter says to him and finds it reinforced when Nonna and Shauna visit him later in the week. They've come to see him to ask for his help in structuring their next phase of study. Nonna is moving on from looking at how self-care enables giving to looking at how to support beings in the change process, a study that he's undertaking in partnership with Pluto. Shauna, on the other hand, is moving on from looking at all aspects of what gives meaning to life and wants to now look at the impact that values have on the collective. He intends to begin by picking on Nonna's brains when it comes to the aspect of self-care being a key quality in these values, but is also grateful for Saturn's take on nurturing a community. The conversations not just make Saturn feel glad that he hasn't been sidelined, but also help him realize that while it feels uncomfortable to learn something new, it's important to keep an open mind and allow the unfolding, even for an old hand like him. The planets this week are asking us to think about love and how we express that. Is love about expectation? Can we really love unless we feel whole in ourselves and therefore healthy in our expectations from the other? How do we partner others? Is it through gratitude and allowance, or is it through control and blame, or a version in between? How do we influence our communities? Are we making the decisions and expecting followers, or are we influencing and enabling empowered decisions? If we really felt love, the kind that overflows from the love we feel for ourselves and so touches other hearts, what would change? Now, if any of this resonates with you, please let me know in the comments. Please like the video, please subscribe to the channel to help me grow, and please share this with others. If you would like to work with me using the intuitive ability that I have, which has helped reset the energy for thousands of people across the world that I've been working with for the last 14 years, then please reach out to me either through the comments below or on my email asoneis.pn@gmail.com or on my Instagram handle at Pallavi108. I would love to hear from you. I would love to help empower as many people as possible to feel less pain and more joy and ease and relief. And I would like to share with you all the love and light that I can channel. Thank you.